All right, folks, strap in because today we're peeling back the curtain on Democrat disaster theater. In California, where the only thing hotter than the wildfires is the sheer incompetence of leftist leadership, we've got a state run by Gavin Newsom and his merry band of leftists fumbling around like they're auditioning for a comedy of errors. The fires aren't just burning down homes, they're torching the myth that the left has any clue how to govern beyond virtue signaling and sound bites. And don't even get me started on the diverse firefighters, because nothing screams effective leadership like prioritizing identity politics over, hiring people who can actually carry a grown man out of a burning building. While Newsom is pretending to call the president and fumbling through excuses, ordinary Californians are left asking why their tax dollars fund this level of ineptitude. The only thing spreading faster than these fires is the left's inability to take responsibility. And trust me, folks, the damage isn't just physical. It's ideological. Now let's start with the grim reality of this disaster, which has been an ongoing catastrophe that has devastated communities and forced hundreds of thousands to flee their homes. According to the Los Angeles County Fire Department and CAL FIRE, as of the making of this video, the fires have claimed at least 7 lives. Over 10,000 structures have been destroyed, with 293,000 residents under mandatory evacuation orders. Despite the relentless efforts of emergency crews, the containment numbers tell a sobering story. The Palisades fire, the largest and most destructive, has burned over 19,978 acres and remains 0% contained. The Eaton fire has scorched 10,600 acres, also with 0% containment. The Hearst fire has burned 855 acres and is only 10% contained, while the Lydia fire, which has consumed 348 acres, is 60% contained. The Sunset Fire near Hollywood, covering 43 acres, has fortunately been fully contained. Now, while the containment of the Sunset Fire offers a rare glimmer of hope, the broader situation remains dire. Dry brush combined with hurricane-force winds exceeding 50 miles an hour has fueled the fire's rapid spread, overwhelming emergency crews and devastating entire neighborhoods. The economic toll is staggering, with damages estimated to exceed $60 billion as homes, businesses, and vital infrastructure lie in ruins. Local officials have admitted to significant failures, including non-functional hydrants and delayed responses in key areas, raising serious questions about the preparedness and leadership of figures like our wonderful Governor Gavin Newsom, who can be seen here nervously deciding whether to take the private jet to Napa or just have the $500 bottle of wine shipped to his brand new $9 million mansion. As Californians mourn their losses and brace for more challenges, this moment demands accountability and a reassessment of how disasters are managed in a state increasingly vulnerable to them. Will this serve as a wake-up call, or is California doomed to repeat the cycle of preventable devastation? Well, let's find out.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or, you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire. Which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Yes, Assistant Chief Christine Larson serving up a statement that perfectly encapsulates how identity politics can smolder common sense into ashes. Let's break this down and sprinkle in some facts to fully extinguish this misguided argument. First, the claim that people want a firefighter who looks like them to show up in an emergency assumes that appearances somehow improve rescue outcomes. But according to a 2021 study published by the National Fire Protection Association, the effectiveness of firefighting is overwhelmingly determined by training, equipment, and team coordination, not the demographic characteristics of the firefighter. There's zero evidence or correlation to suggest that shared identity between victims and responders has any measurable impact on survival rates or emergency outcomes. What does matter? Response times, competence under pressure, and physical capability. Now let's examine the actual demands of firefighting, because Larson's comment conveniently glosses over the reality of the job. According to the U.S. Fire Administration, firefighters often carry upwards of 75 pounds of gear while navigating extreme heat, toxic smoke, and unstable structures. Add to that the requirement to perform rescues, such as carrying unconscious victims who may weigh well over 200 pounds, and it becomes clear that physical strength and endurance are non-negotiable. Yet Larson prioritizes appearances as though identity alone can drag someone out of a burning building. And let's not forget the implications of this rhetoric for recruitment and standards. According to a 2020 report from the International Association of Fire Chiefs, departments that focus on lowering physical or skill requirements to meet diversity goals often face increased injuries among personnel and reduced operational efficiency. When the focus shifts from hiring the best candidates to fulfilling arbitrary identity quotas, everyone loses, especially the people these firefighters are supposed to protect. And I know you've been thinking about that flippant remark. If I have to carry him out of the fire, honey, he got himself in the wrong place. It's not just a bad joke, it's a blatant contradiction of the mission of being a firefighter. Firefighters are trained to go into dangerous situations precisely because people can't save themselves. Whether it's a child trapped in a bedroom or an incapacitated adult, the job demands physical readiness, not cute one-liners. Larson's quip trivializes the critical importance of these life-saving capabilities and undermines public confidence in her department. But clearly, she doesn't care as long as she's meeting those quotas. Lastly, the broader data on public trust in emergency services dismantles Larson's identity-focused argument. According to a 2022 Gallup poll, public confidence in firefighters consistently ranks among the highest of all professions because people value their competence, bravery, and professionalism. Nowhere in the survey results does anyone mention caring about whether their firefighter looks like them. That's because when someone's life is on the line, all that matters is having the most skilled and capable person on the job. So, Assistant Chief Larson, those are some pretty nice lashes you got. But here's a little advice. Leave identity politics out of a life and death scenario. Focus instead on ensuring that every firefighter is equipped, trained, and ready to meet the demands of this physically and emotionally grueling profession. When people's homes are burning down, they're not looking for representation. They're looking for results. But hey, let's be generous here. Maybe it really is all about representation and not just competence when managing a crisis like this. After all, who needs expertise when you can check a diversity box, right? I mean, just take a look at this clip.
We're just mapping out here are under mandatory evacuations. And obviously you can hear all of our phones are going off some type of alert, an evacuation warning, it looks like.
Yeah, my alert reads, This is an emergency message from the LA County Fire Department. An evacuation warning has been issued in your area.
Yeah.
This is what this looks like.
Remain vigilant of any threats and be ready to evacuate. Gather loved ones, pets, and supplies. Continue to monitor local weather news and the webpage alertla.org for more information.
Yeah, so these alerts come, based on where you are.
It looks like on my phone.
Yeah, and here we are in West LA, and we're getting an alert. We'll have to look into why. It would not be from what we're talking about right here up to the north.
And that, my friends, is what we in the business call a false alarm. Now, if you needed proof that prioritizing representation over competence yields amazing results, look no further than the Office of Emergency Management's latest hit. A county-wide evacuation alert sent to millions of people by mistake. Now let's paint a picture here. Phones screaming across Los Angeles County from Torrance to Catalina Island, even down to Newport Beach, warning 10 million Angelenos to prepare for evacuation. Panic erupts. People scramble to figure out what's happening, only to find out minutes later that, whoopsie, this life-disrupting message was intended for a small pocket of West Hills residents because of the Kenneth fire. And the cherry on top, the correction alert was just as loud, just as jarring, and did nothing to calm the chaos. But hey, at least everyone felt represented in their panic. Now let's dissect this train wreck of a mistake. Sending a false emergency alert isn't just a slip-up, it's a monumental failure of communication and oversight. Emergency management requires precision and clarity, two things that clearly took a back seat here. Blame it on the unprecedented conditions or the unrelenting winds, but these excuses crumble under scrutiny. What we're seeing isn't just human error, it's systemic incompetence wrapped in a shiny package of DEI rhetoric. And let's talk about why this matters. Sending out emergency alerts is one of the most fundamental functions of crisis management. It's not a side project, it's a cornerstone of public safety. When those systems fail, they erode trust. According to FEMA guidelines, emergency communication must be clear, accurate, and targeted to prevent unnecessary panic. Yet here we are with millions of Angelenos unnecessarily terrorized and scrambling for answers. And for what? Because someone hit send to all like it was an email blast for a yoga class? And don't let anyone dismiss this as a harmless mistake. Trust in emergency systems is critical during disasters. False alarms reduce the public's willingness to respond to real ones. Research published by the National Academy of Sciences shows that repeated false alerts lead to alert fatigue, where people become desensitized to future warnings. In other words, the next time there's an actual life-threatening evacuation order, some residents might just ignore it entirely because this incident taught them that the system can't be trusted. But let's not stop there. This isn't just about one bad alert. It's about the broader philosophy driving leadership in these agencies. When decision-making focuses on checking demographic boxes rather than prioritizing expertise, mistakes like this become inevitable. The fire department, emergency management, and basically every public service position, they're not places for virtue signaling. It's the place for qualified, meticulous professionals who understand that lives depend on getting things right. This needs to be drilled into the public consciousness, that this is what happens when leaders prioritize optics over outcomes. And before anyone accuses me of being too harsh, let's remember, the people in charge are managing literal life and death scenarios. Mistakes like this don't just cause panic, they jeopardize very trust and safety systems meant to protect us. So while the DEI hires might be patting themselves on the back for how inclusive their team is, the rest of us are left wondering, how many more mistakes like this can we afford? Representation is important, yes, but in emergencies, it's competence that saves lives. Let's stop pretending that the two are interchangeable. And can this possibly get any worse, you ask? Well, I'm so glad you asked, because yes, it can definitely get much, much worse. Because on December 24th, 2024, just days before wildfires began tearing through Los Angeles, LAFD canceled their annual fire hydrant testing, citing fiscal challenges. But those challenges didn't come out of nowhere. They were handed down directly from our lovely mayor and communist-in-chief, Karen Bass, who slashed nearly $20 million from the department's budget. Yes, she gutted the funding for basic life-saving infrastructure in a city already infamous for its wildfire risks. Brilliant. To sum it up, instead of ensuring fire hydrants worked, a bare minimum requirement for public safety, Bass decided those dollars were better spent elsewhere. Meanwhile, the LAFD still found room in the budget for a diversity, equity, and inclusion bureau and a DEI chief. Apparently, making sure everyone feels represented was far more important than making sure firefighters had water to save lives and property. Now, this isn't leadership. It's pure negligence wrapped in buzzwords. The consequences of these choices are now playing out in real time. Entire neighborhoods are turning to ash, firefighters are scrambling to find working hydrants, and 10 million residents are paying the price for Bass's stunning lack of priorities. Budget cuts are tough, sure, but they reveal what leadership truly values. And Bass, well, she valued performative inclusivity over actual emergency preparedness. Our city deserves better, and Bass deserves to be held accountable for this catastrophic failure. Now, what further exposed Mayor Bass's misplaced priorities was the revelation that while she slashed $17 million from the LA Fire Department budget, she made sure to set aside $170,000 for social justice art and another $100,000 for transgender cafes, because nothing says crisis management like murals and lattes. Needless to say, this is the kind of decision-making that leaves neighborhoods burning while city officials pat themselves on the back for their inclusivity. Hydrants don't work, firefighters are underfunded, but hey, at least the art installations will look great in the ashes. This isn't leadership, it's virtue signaling with a price tag, and the cost is the safety of 10 million Angelenos. Anyway, as you'll recall, yesterday, Mayor Karen Bass avoided reporters' questions like the plague, and when she finally did respond, she read the phrase URL out loud instead of providing the actual link to help Angelenos, like a bumbling amateur. It was really icing on the cake. Well, she since held another press conference, and let me tell you, it didn't go any better. Here's how that disaster unfolded.
Let me just say, first and foremost, my number one focus, and I think the focus of all of us here with one voice, is that we have to protect lives, we have to save lives, and we have to save homes. Rest assured that when let me finish. Rest assured, when that is done, when we are safe, when lives have been saved and homes have been saved, we will absolutely do an evaluation to look at what worked, what didn't work, and to correct or to hold accountable any body, department, individual, etc. But my focus right now is on the lives and on the homes.
Do you think your leadership was effective while responding to this disaster?
I just said what I believe is the most important thing for us to do right now, and that is going to continue to be my focus. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to the
This so-called statement from Mayor Karen Bass is less of a response to a crisis and more of a blatant attempt to shield herself from accountability. She starts with, "My number one focus is to protect lives and save homes." Sounds good, right? Except it's all talk. When you dig into the facts, her administration isn't saving lives or property. They're failing spectacularly. For example, the Los Angeles County Fire Department is currently operating with outdated equipment and inadequate staffing. A 2023 report from the National Fire Protection Association found that nearly 20% of the department's fire engines are over 15 years old and prone to mechanical failure, while staffing levels are 12% below the recommended national average for a population of this size. These issues didn't arise overnight. They're the result of years of neglect compounded by Bass's budget cuts, which stripped $17 million from the fire department mere weeks before this disaster. And let's take it even a step further. Response times. According to data from the Los Angeles Emergency Operations Center, the average response time for fire crews during these wildfires has increased by nearly 40% compared to the last major fire event in 2020. Why? Because hydrants in multiple neighborhoods are non-functional due to deferred maintenance, forcing firefighters to waste precious minutes searching for alternative water sources. These delays directly undermine efforts to save lives and property, and they're entirely preventable with proper planning and funding. Additionally, while Bass touts her focus on saving lives, her administration has failed to provide adequate shelter and support for evacuees. The Red Cross reported that evacuation centers have been overwhelmed with at least 30% of evacuees in the San Fernando Valley unable to secure shelter within the first 24 hours of being displaced. Medical staff in Pasadena have flagged critical shortages of cots and basic supplies for evacuees, including nursing home residents who were evacuated with no clear contingency plan in place. These failures compounded the suffering of those already devastated by the fires. And while Bass deflects questions and promises future accountability, let's not forget her track record. In 2023, she promised increased investments in wildfire prevention, including fire break creation and vegetation management, yet less than 30% of the proposed fire prevention projects were completed as of late 2024. These broken promises directly contributed to the scale and intensity of the current disaster. So let's just lay this out as plainly as possible. Mayor Karen Bass isn't just failing in her leadership. She's actively using this tragedy as a shield to avoid accountability for the decisions that led us here. By refusing to answer questions and hiding behind vague statements like, "We need to focus on saving lives and homes," she's dodging scrutiny. It's a dishonest strategy, exploiting the ongoing chaos to distract from her administration's clear role in exacerbating this crisis. Now consider this. Bass slashed those $17 million from the LAFD budget weeks ago. This directly impacted crucial preparedness measures like annual hydrant testing, a fundamental safeguard that was canceled due to fiscal challenges, as we just saw. When hydrants failed as firefighters battled to save neighborhoods, that wasn't just bad luck. It was the inevitable result of Bass's priorities. Yet instead of owning up to these choices, she's using the scale of the disaster to silence criticism as though the severity of this crisis absolves her of responsibility. So the tactic here is clear. Present yourself as too busy focusing on saving lives to answer for the decisions that left those lives vulnerable in the first place. It's an exploitation of tragedy, plain and simple. And while Bass dodges tough questions, communities are left grappling with the fallout of her mismanagement. Lives lost, homes destroyed, and an underfunded fire department stretched beyond its limits. Real leadership isn't about hiding behind the chaos. It's about facing it head on, taking responsibility, and fixing what went wrong. Bass has done none of that. Instead, she's using the very disaster she helped create as a convenient excuse to avoid accountability. Angelenos deserve better, and they deserve answers, not empty platitudes from a mayor more focused on protecting her image than protecting her city. And guess who else partakes in Karen Bass's philosophy of image before constituents? You guessed it, our great governor, and I say that very sarcastically, Gavin Newsom.
Governor, you got a second? Governor, I live here, Governor.
That was my daughter's school, Governor. Please tell me what you're going to do. I'm not going to hurt him, I promise.
I'm literally talking to the president right now to specifically answer the question of what we can do for you and your daughter.
Can I hear it? Can I hear your call? Because I don't believe it.
I'm sorry. There's literally, I've tried 5 times. That's why I'm walking around to make the call.
Why is the president not taking your call?
Because it's not going through. So
Why?
I have to get cell service.
So let's get it. Let's get it. I want to be here when you call the president.
I appreciate it. I'm doing that right now. And it's to immediately get reimbursements, individual assistance, and to help you. I'm devastated for you. I'm so sorry, especially for your daughter. I have 4 kids. Losing the school.
Everyone who went to school there, they lost their homes. They lost 2 homes because they were living in one and building another. Governor, please tell me, what are you going to do with the president right now?
We're getting the resources to help rebuild.
Why was there no water in the hydrants, Governor?
That's all literally.
Is it going to be different next time?
It has to be. Has to be. Of course.
What are you going to do?
I'm doing
to
everything
fill the
I can.
hydrants. I would fill them up personally. You know that.
I literally have.
I would fill up the hydrants myself.
I understand.
But would you do that?
I would do whatever I can.
But you're not. I see the. Do you know there's water dripping over there, Governor? There's water coming out there. You can use it.
I appreciate it. I'm going to make the call to address everything I can right now, inclling making sure people
I'd
are
like
safe.
to make sure you do. Can I have an opportunity to at least tell people you're doing what you're saying you're doing? Could somebody have a contact? Can I have your contact information?
Right there.
Wow, the layers of deflection here are remarkable. Newsom starts with a classic move, claiming he's literally talking to the president right now on his phone. Convenient, isn't it? A call so important. He can't even pause for a direct conversation with the very constituents, the very people he's supposed to serve, who likely elected him into office. And when pressed to provide proof of the so-called presidential call, he fumbles. He's like, oh, self-service. Really, in 2025 in Los Angeles County, we're expected to believe that the governor of California can't get a reliable phone connection with the president? It's laughable. Newsom's excuse is as flimsy as the state's wildfire preparedness under his leadership. Then comes the hollow empathy. Oh, I'm devastated for you. Sure, Governor. Devastated enough to performatively pace around pretending to call the president, but not enough to provide substantive answers. What about the broken fire hydrants? The president brings up this glaring failure, a direct consequence of deferred maintenance and poor budgetary priorities, but Newsom brushes it off with vague promises. It has to be different next time. That's not an answer. It's a placeholder for leadership he's unwilling to provide. And let's not ignore the optics here. Newsom appears to be smiling and laughing throughout this whole interaction, as though the devastation this resident is describing is some kind of minor inconvenience or awkward joke. This is a man who seems more concerned with maintaining his cool, media-friendly demeanor than showing genuine empathy for a constituent who has lost everything. That casual grin, it's a stark contrast to the gravity of the situation and an insult to the people suffering because of his administration's failures. Instead of addressing why basic infrastructure failed during a crisis, Newsom brushes it off with a smirk, making it painfully clear that accountability isn't even on his radar. What's most egregious here is the exploitation of the residents' pain. This isn't about a PR misstep. It's a cynical tactic to avoid accountability. By pretending to be in the middle of something important, Newsom shifts the narrative away from his administration's shortcomings and uses the ongoing tragedy as a shield, kind of like Karen Bass. Oh, wow, I guess great minds do think alike. It's manipulative and cowardly, and it's emblematic of a leader more focused on optics than outcomes. The reality is stark here. California's wildfire infrastructure is woefully inadequate, and that's not due to cell service or imaginary phone calls. It's due to years of mismanagement, budget cuts, and misplaced priorities under leaders like Newsom. His inability or unwillingness to provide clear answers or take responsibility is a betrayal of the people he was elected to serve. The residents' question, why is there no water in the hydrants, sums it up perfectly. That's the real issue, Governor. And no amount of fake phone calls or empty promises can drown out the deafening silence of your accountability. And since we're moving up the chain of command of these Democrat responses, might as well just go all the way up to the head honcho, Biden himself, and see what he's got to say now.
Madam Vice President, I know you're directly affected, so you fire away. No pun intended.
All right, as the president throws it to the vice president.
You know, I'm more surprised that that man can even speak still. It's not an easy task being the retard in chief. Anyway, the fires aren't the only crisis unfolding. Adding to the devastation are looters. Scum of the earth opportunists exploiting the displacement of hundreds of thousands of residents to ransack their abandoned homes. It's a sickening display of greed and cruelty, targeting people already enduring unimaginable loss.
It was wild. We just started seeing all these cars pull up, doors open, and groups of men running up our street, going up to the doors of these houses. And we weren't sure what was going on. I'm thinking, are these people here to help my neighbors? I hope so. And I left, and then my husband talked to the police and said, what are those guys doing? These guys don't live here, get them out. My next door neighbor said, his quote, there were like 100 people that came up on scooters and were trying to get into any and all houses on the street.
And did you physically see police officers stopping them?
I didn't, but it's not to say that they weren't. It was so incredibly chaotic, and I was so worried about my big family and getting them out of our old tinderbox of a house that I was just focused on them first.
Well, folks, there you have it. This is what you get with Democrat-led governments. A trifecta of incompetence, disasters, and unchecked crime. And adding insult to injury, the Los Angeles sheriff has announced the arrest of at least 20 criminals attempting to exploit victims who've already lost everything in the fires. While it's good that these arrests were made, let's not pretend this is a victory. 20 arrests barely scratch the surface when hundreds of looters are out there taking advantage of this chaos. It's a band-aid on a gaping wound caused by years of mismanagement and soft-on-crime policies. It's already bad enough that residents have to flee their homes to escape the flames, but under this kind of leadership, they also have to worry about criminals waltzing in to pillage whatever the fire doesn't destroy. This isn't just a failure of emergency management. It's a failure to uphold basic law and order. When disaster strikes, a functioning government should step up to protect its citizens, not abandon them in chaos. But hey, what else can we expect from Democrat-led governments that prioritize virtue signaling and optics over actual governance? You get underfunded fire departments, crumbling infrastructure, and of course, crime running rampant. This is the Democrat playbook in action, and Angelenos are paying the price, losing their homes, their possessions, and any sense of security. Now, the criminal element isn't apparently solely restricted to the looting. There are indications and reports that the fires may be criminal themselves.
We were sort of wondering why there are so many police out here. Obviously, this is a fire scene, and we've been at fire scenes for the last couple of days. And it didn't really make a lot of sense that more and more LAPD were showing up, and then the crime scene unit also being out here. So we spoke to the lead officer in charge, who you saw there, and he was very open about it. He said that they believe the Kenneth fire, which is the latest fire to start here in LA, now at 900 acres, give or take, they believe that someone did intentionally set it, that this is now officially an arson investigation. He said this whole area behind me, the canyon behind me, they're calling now a crime scene, and that they have a person in custody, detained, who they are questioning. Apparently someone in the area may have seen something. Now someone is in custody.
Yes, folks, some scumbag intentionally lit the spark that set at least one of these devastating wildfires in motion. The LAPD has one person in custody, and the Kenneth fire is now under a full arson investigation. Think about that. While thousands are fleeing for their lives and firefighters are risking everything to save what they can, we have individuals actively choosing to create more destruction. It's beyond horrible, and it's honestly pure evil. And then there's this disturbing footage right here, shared by Andrew Huberman on X. In the video he shared, people are seen lighting fires in non-burning urban areas of Los Angeles, specifically at 302 Pico in Santa Monica. Huberman witnessed this firsthand and called it in. Thankfully, both the fire department and police responded quickly, but the fact that this is even happening is chilling. With wildfires already spiraling out of control, the last thing anyone needs is intentional arson adding to this chaos. And this isn't just random criminal behavior, it's a symptom of a city and state in complete disarray. While resources are stretched to their breaking point fighting natural disasters, you now have to worry about these morons. The message couldn't be clearer. Stay vigilant, report suspicious activity, and frankly, demand better from leadership to address not just the fires, but the underlying lawlessness that allows this insanity to flourish. Los Angeles deserves better than this escalating cycle of incompetence and criminality. And according to a video that's now going viral on X and reports from KFI, this is the man responsible for the Kenneth fire. What we've seen unfold in Los Angeles is nothing short of a nightmare. A city engulfed by flames, chaos, and unanswered questions. While some fires, like the Kenneth fire, have been confirmed as arson, speculation is growing that others may have also been deliberately set. This isn't just baseless conjecture. It's supported by eyewitness accounts and the alarming pattern of apparent coordination. On Wednesday alone, 5 fires erupted across the city, followed by 2 more within an hour on opposite sides of the Hollywood Hills, near Runyon Canyon and Studio City. The Kenneth fire alone has burned nearly 1,000 acres, forced hundreds to evacuate, and continues to grow. Meanwhile, at least 7 lives have been lost, over 10,000 structures have been destroyed, and more than 293,000 people have been displaced across the region. The timing and placement of these fires are far too precise to dismiss as coincidence. That's why I believe this is more than just a coordinated effort. It's a deliberate attempt to terrorize and destabilize Los Angeles, and by consequence the rest of the country. With nearly 8 million illegal immigrants crossing the U.S. border since 2021, and nearly 500,000 of them being known criminals with extensive rap sheets, the risks to public safety are undeniable. Furthermore, reports confirm tens of thousands of individuals on terror watch lists have also entered the country during this period. The surge of illegal immigration, coupled by lax enforcement, has allowed criminal organizations, including Latin American gangs, to proliferate. Los Angeles is now facing the consequences. Organized looting of evacuated luxury homes, such as those reported in Woodland Hills, where hundreds of thieves have taken advantage of the chaos. And professional athletes are among the victims. And this issue, by the way, extends far beyond California. Parts of Colorado have seen similar gang activity, and New York's subway system has become emblematic of urban decay under Democrat leadership. At the end of the day, this isn't just negligence, it's a strategy. By allowing the country to descend into chaos, Democrats are laying the groundwork to hand over a broken nation to Donald Trump, hoping he fumbles it. The $20 million in budget cuts to the LA Fire Department by Mayor Karen Bass before the fire started, paired with the mismanagement of emergency alerts, underscores the systemic failures that have left cities like Los Angeles vulnerable. But here's the thing. They're betting against someone who thrives in high-stakes situations. Trump won't fumble it. He'll face it head-on, as he has before. This deliberate dismantling of safety, security, and stability isn't just about political gamesmanship. It's about the very soul of America. The fires in Los Angeles aren't just a regional crisis. They're a warning to the entire nation to wake up before it's too late. Anyway, what do you think? Tell me what you think in the comments down below. Have a terrific day. Peace.